to begin? Everyone can hear me? Okay, great. Okay, so for a few Thursday nights, I would like to learn together some of the shilas that have come up specifically because of the coronavirus and the pandemic and quarantine. And there's some really interesting issues, and so we'll tackle one of them tonight. So the sources for at least tonight and next week are going to come from this packet that we sent out before Shavuos. Maybe some of you went through some of the sources, and I'm going to share my screen, and if that's okay with everyone, we'll be able to look at them together. Hope that will work for everyone. Let me pull it up. Okay, can everyone see that? Okay, great. So first of all, just so you know the program, there's a relatively new program which is primarily comes from World Mizrahi, right? Ruvain Tarragon, if anyone knows Ray Tarragon, and Kavi Tarragon, and it's called Zorba Mirabanan, and it is they put together these packets really beautifully for people in groups with perhaps someone giving a shiur to learn different topics in halacha, and the normal packets, and they have a whole system of learning together. Can't remember if they're even tests perhaps. So most of the packets are in kind of regular classic halacha, the laws of Shabbos, laws of kashrus, whatever it may be. But during these past number of months, so they've put out packets related to things to do with the coronavirus. The first pack was more historical and hashkafic, but the second pack is about the shilas that came up in the coronavirus. It says a concise learning method from the Talmudic sources through modern day halachic application. That's in general, and we'll see that's what they did here. I'm just curious. Did you can be honest? Did anyone look through any of this material over Shavuos? And any no? Okay. Well, okay, that's fine. So so I know what to, how, I shouldn't skip words, okay. It's from also the Eretz Chemda, which is a very good organization, Kolel. Okay, fine. So the first topic in this packet is this: Porch and outdoor Minyanim during coronavirus restrictions. Okay. So you can see like their coded system of different sources. We're going to skip the introduction. Okay, I might zoom in a little bit here. Okay. Porch and outdoor Minyanim, they have a little, disclaimer, don't do anything dangerous, and don't derive necessarily a practical halacha in terms of psak from these packets. But let's begin. Okay, so Mishnah Psachim is talking about the prohibition to take the carbon pesach outside of the home once the group begins to eat it, which is a prohibition that applies for all generations. The Mishnah says, "Aver sheyatza miksaso." If a piece of the carbon pesach would partially go out the door, chotech ad shemagia le'etzem. So you have to, anything that leaves the house becomes prohibited. You chop down through the limb, through the bone, or until the bone, because you can't break a bone of a carbon pesach. And you peel off the skin, the meat, the muscle, till you get to the joint, and you peel it off and you throw it out. Okay, fine. And the Mishnah says, Min ha'agaf vilifnim kilifnim. From the doorway and inside, that's considered inside. Min ha'agaf v'lachutz kolchutz. From the doorway and out is outside. We're not going to get into exactly how you define what's inside and outside of the doorway, which part of the doorway. Hachalonos v'ove achoma, the width through the walls, or the open airspace within windows, within walls. Kilifnim is considered inside, so it's not a problem of putting a piece of your carbon pesach on a plate on the windowsill. Okay, that is the Mishnah about carbon pesach. Everyone okay with that? If I'm going too fast, please tell me to slow down. Everyone good? Okay. Gemara, the Gemara says in this, Amar Yehuda Marav. Yehuda Marav said, V'chein litfila. And whatever this Mishnah says applies equally to tefillah. English translation, similar with regard to prayer, in that one who is standing outside the doorway cannot be included together with those praying inside. Okay. Upliga to Rishu ben Levi, but this argues with Rishu ben Levi. The Amar Rishu ben Levi, because Rishu ben Levi said, "Afilu mechitza shel barzel, eino mafsekes bein Yisrael avim shebeshamayim." Even an iron barrier cannot separate the Jewish people from their God. They're, it's like he knew about Zoom before it existed. Tefillah, we all can connect. There's no mechitza disrupts. And for tefillah, no, you can have people in the house, out of the house. It's not a problem. Okay. So that's a machlokes. That's what it seems in the Gemara. A machlokes to form a minyan, at least the 10 men necessary to form the minyan. Do they all need to be inside of the house, maybe inside the same room, or no? That is the machlokas in the Gemara. How do we paskin? The Shulchan Aruch says, and this is what all Rishonim hold, Sarech shiu kol hasara b'makom echad. You need to have at least the original 10 men in one place. Ushliach sibor imahem, with the chazan in that same place. V'ha'omed b'socha pesach, and if you're right in the doorway, so then min ha'gaf l'chutz k'l'chutz, if it's beyond where the door slams, you're outside. If you're within, you're within. Okay, without getting to the details of the doorway. But it seems pretty clear that you need at least 10 men to be in one place, and they can't be outside of the door. Good so far? Any questions, comments? Based on this, if we stopped here, so I should have explained this in the beginning. In Israel, in places in America where, there are many from Jews living close together, full blocks, especially when they're apartment buildings. So what did some people do? They couldn't daven together, right? It's not safe. But everyone would go out on their porch. Everyone's only on their porch. And they would have a minyan across the courtyard. And everyone could hear everyone. Everyone could see everyone. Or let's assume that. But everyone is on their porch. I'm sure people have read about this and have seen this, right? Yeah. So if we would stop here, it would seem that you cannot do that. Right? Is that everyone agree with me, or Ari, you want to disagree with me?
No, I agree. I just wanted to ask, what if you're davening outside? Totally outside.
Very good. So if you're davening outside, excellent. So you don't need to be in one building, in one structure. So as long as everyone is outside and can see everyone, see each other and hear each other, the first 10, that everyone agrees is fine. But there would still be a problem in principle based on what we've learned so far if, let's say, everyone's outside and there's a fence separating people, right? Because then there's a barrier separating people. Again, Rishu ben Levi said, no barrier can separate the Jewish people when it comes to prayer. But we don't really accept that. We accept the first opinion of the Gemara, that a barrier is problematic. So as long as there's no mechitza, no barrier separating the people diving outside, that would be fine. But if there would be, then it would be a problem. Philip, were you going to say something?
No, it got answered.
Okay. Okay.
I just have a question. It might be too much of a digression. It doesn't really seem to me the way the Gemara words what Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi is saying, that there is a true machlokas with Rabbi Yehuda, because he's talking about a mechitza between an individual and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which has nothing to do with a mechitza between people who are not in the same room.
Excellent point, Howie. No, your excellent point. Again, the Gemara does say upliga, that they're arguing, but you're making a very good point. It doesn't necessarily seem that way from the statement. So we'll leave it at that, but you're right. You have to, if you wish to learn the Gemara, maybe it's not so simple. But either way, so the halacha is though that, at least based on this source, that everyone needs to be in the same place.
Got it.
Now, the problems begin with the very next sif in the Shulchan Aruch. The sif we read was Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, Nun Hey Yud Gimel. Then we have Shulchan Aruch, Orach Chaim, Nun Hey Yud Daled. Now, read this. You'll tell me if there's a problem. Misha Omeid Achure Beis HaKnesses. Someone is standing outside the shul building, in the back, the side, it doesn't matter. Ubeinehem chalom, and there's a window between the shul, evidence the 9 men inside the shul, and the 1 man outside. Afilu gavoa kama komos, even though let's say it's a very tall sanctuary, and this window is very high up. Afilu enu rachav arba, even if the window is a very small hole, it's not 4 amos wide, it means tfachim. Umara lahem panav, but the person outside shows them his face. Mitzaref imahem la'asara. He can combine with the others to form the minyan. Does this fit with the previous sif or not?
No.
Doesn't seem like it. Doesn't seem like it. But obviously that can't be. It's back-to-back halachos in the Shulchan Aruch, right? Which are not presented with any dissenting opinions. So how do you understand this sif? That is the issue. So let's read the Tzorba Mirabanan's comment here. Now, of course, this is a summary and it has to be simplified to some degree. But this says, right, according to this, if the person outside can see those inside and they can see him, he can count for the minyan, despite not being in the same physical space. Part of the basis for this approach is a similar halacha within Hilchos Zimun by benching, where the Shulchan Aruch rules based on the Rashba that if 2 groups of people are eating a meal separately but can see each other, so let's say they're at separate tables, it's a cafeteria but they can see each other, they can combine together to make a zimun. So too here, if people can see each other, even though they're in different places, they can combine to make a minyan. We're not going to read it inside. This is the Shulchan Aruch and the laws of benching where he says that. People can see each other, they can.
Doesn't that kind of bring Zoom into perspective? I mean, isn't there a Sephardic rabbi in Baltimore who says that it is possible to use Zoom to make a minyan?
I can't remember who. There was someone, and even based on this, that Mara Panav, you show your face.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think that was accepted really, but there was someone who tried to make that argument. Okay. Let's read source 6. The Mishnah Brura, he's got to explain this to us. How did he explain these halachos? The Mishnah Brura writes, Mitzarif imahem. After yesh hefsek mechitza beineihem, even though there's a mechitza between them, 9 are in the building, 1 is outside. Kaven demara lehem panav, since he's showing his face. Dom elamashim v'or l'chaim b'simikuf sadihei, it's like there by benching, lein zimun. If Rowan Elus Elif, they can see each other, mitzarfin, they can combine. Lefiza, we wouldn't let this young Israel broke line if you have some men standing in the women's section where there are no women. So even though there's a mechitza, if they can see each other, they can combine. Okay, that's what the Mishnah Brura says. Let's read one more Mishnah Brura. So now the Shulchan Aruch, right after this face sif, says, "In ksas ha'asara beis haknesses, uksasam ba'azara." You have some in the shul. Here, azara means like the courtyard. Ein mitzarfim, they can't join. They need to be in the same place. The Mishnah says here, who adin afilim test, even if they're 9 in the shul and 1 outside, doesn't work. Kasav a prima but the prima writes, I'm going to finish this, then we'll summarize. Dahi, desif, yud zayin, yud ches, yud tes. All these sifim which say you need to have everyone in the same place. Myri b'she'enan roen zez. That's only if you don't see each other. Diva roen zez, if you see each other, afilu b'shnei batim mamash, even in 2 different buildings. Mitzarfin, they join. Dumya dezimun l'kamam b'simen kuf sadi hey. So whenever the Shulchan Aruch says you need everyone in the same place, and if you're outside, it's a problem. That's only if you can't see the person. But if you can see the person, it's fine. The yesh machmir, but others are strict. Afilu baro, and even if you can see each other, ubemakam hadachak efshar sheyesh lahakel. So it's a machlokas. If you can, so let's just review a little bit. There seem to be these sifim. Honestly, we didn't totally harmonize the sifim the Shulchan Aruch, but there seems to be an issue that there's a machlokas. If you're not in the same place, but you can see the person, can that person join to make the minyan? And it's a machlokas. Some say you can, some say you can't. So the Mishmar says, "U'b'makam hadachak." So if there's a pressing need, efshar sheyesh lahakel. It's not the strongest endorsement. Perhaps one can be lenient. Okay, that is the Mishnah Berurah. If you're a little confused, that's not a problem because this is confusing. That's part of the problem here. So, but any questions or comments to clarify? Questions? Again, the basic point is that the Gemara seems to say you need to be in the same place. But apparently there are aliens who said if you can see each other, maybe that is good enough. There's a machlokas. The Mishnah Berurah says maybe you can rely on it when you really need it. Any questions or comments? Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Yes, Abiel.
Yeah, like it would be much more, much easier to say so if the Shulchan Aruch himself would distinguish that way. It sounds like
Exactly.
It's are really contradicting.
Exactly, because let me just say what Aviel said. The Shulchan Aruch has all these. There's like halacha 1, 2, 3, where he says you need to be in the same room. If they're in the courtyard, it doesn't work. Et cetera, et cetera. If all of those meant only when you can't see each other, you would think he should make that a little more clear. From all of those seifim, you get the impression you need to be in the same place, no matter what, even if you can see. But the problem is, then what do you do with Sif Yadalid, which said if the person you can see his face in the window, then that's good, right? That's the problem. That's the problem. Okay. So there's a really interesting source here. The Chida. The Chida was Rav Chaim Yosef David Azulai. So a very important Sephardi posek in the 1700s. I always get him confused with who do I get him confused with? The Ben Ish Chai. But I think the Chida was, and if this wasn't the Chida, it's the Ben Ish Chai. But I'm pretty sure it's the Chida. He lived in Israel, and he was the official Meshulach for Israel, or maybe Yerushalayim, to go around Europe to collect money to support people in Yerushalayim. So he was an incredible genius, incredible. He wrote 30-something Sfarim. And so he went around all of Europe. So he met all the Gedolim, was in all different communities. He was sort of like the first in the traditional, in anywhere traditional, there wasn't a scholarly world yet. He found all these different manuscripts and published tons of different books and interesting. But he was a posek also. So there's it's not really a tshuva, it's written as a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch. So if you read in the English here, the Chida was quarantined in a lazaretto, which apparently means a quarantine station, before entering Livorno, Italy, as was the common practice at that time for travelers arriving because of infectious diseases, right? Fascinating. And he discusses a case where 2 groups of Jews were being held in separate buildings, and they weren't allowed to mingle. So they wanted to know if they could make a minyan. And he explains that given the situation where otherwise they would not be able to organize a minyan for 40 days consecutively, there's room to be lenient. The Chidah is before the Mishnah Berurah, just to be clear here. The Mishnah Berurah is partially based on the Chidah. So he said, listen, if people are not going to be able to have a minyan for 40 days, they should rely on the lenient opinion, and it's enough that they can see each other from the balconies. It was mamash a balcony minyan. Okay, yes.
That's quarantine. That's where 40 days. The word quarantine comes from the 40 days.
Interesting. Okay, interesting. So that was the practice back then, to wait 40 days. Okay. The lazaretto shenogim be irim ha'el halaka'eleb. So you have two people. Can they join? We won't read the Hebrew. That's the basic point of the Chidah. And so he was lenient. He was lenient. Okay. There are other issues we're not going to be able to talk about tonight. If you're outside, is a street mafsik. Let's say you have people in their front yards, and there's no wall, there's no mechitza, but there's a street running through. Would that be a division, a divider? But we're not going to be able to discuss that. So, okay, the opinion of the contemporary poskim during the coronavirus. Okay, what did people say? Rav Asher Weiss. I'm happy to have the opportunity just to some of the Gedolim of today also. Rav Asher Weiss, if you haven't heard of him, is a fascinating person. He was born on the Lower East Side to a Hasidic family, and he moved to Israel when he was 12. So he's part of the Hasidic world, but he's always remained connected to the non-Hasidic Haredi world, the Dati Leumi Hesder world. He comes and talks to, the YO modern Orthodox world in America. He has many positions. He's the posek of Shari Tzedek Hospital now. He almost came to Brookline. That's also part of his biography. We unfortunately, something happened, but maybe, I don't know. Maybe he'll come, he'll come. I don't know. But that would have been quite amazing if he would have been here. Anyways, so he's been publishing Shuvos. It's incredible the speed of questions and answers that have been produced. Probably some of the answers have been mistakes because the questions and answers have been produced so quickly. There's already 3 editions of Minchas Asher, that's the name of the Svarim, Shut Binyan Magefa Corona, right? Because and as the situation changed, right, the questions changed, and then some of the tshuvos and the answers became not applicable anymore, right? So this comes from, if you're curious, you have this. You can look up all these things. All of these things are found online. If you you look who sponsored the Minchas Asher, it's all of the large modern Orthodox shoals in America. There's Boca Raton and the 5 towns, and anyways, it just again in terms of who he is. So the Minchas Asher basically, bottom line, was lenient. He said, listen, all these poskim are lenient. I am really nothing compared to him, but we'll see. I think he went a little too far. I'm reading in English. We find an explicit halach in the Shulchan Aruch. If you show your face, it works. And the Ramah does not disagree. And the Taz and Magen Avraham support it. And anyone who disagrees with them is like disagreeing with the Shechina. That's what he said. Now, then he quotes, he knows there are some people who disagree. But, he felt, at least given the circumstances, you can be makel. And so you can have everyone on different porches, and it's fine. Thus, revise rules like the lenient opinions, unless there's a street running through, right? Which we didn't get a chance to discuss that. Similarly, just other names. Rav Moshe Sternbach is the Aveisin of the Eidah HaCharedis. He was more or less lenient. Shmuel Eliyahu, who's a big rabbi, the son of a former chief rabbi, also were lenient. Again, maybe with some slight, slight differences between what they said. Again, you can, these are excellent. Again, of course, these are excerpts. This is not the entire tshuva. But these are some of the key passages. You can, if you want to print it out over Shabbos, if this has become interesting to you. Rav Yosef Rimon of Alon Shvut, who's, maybe some people know, who was also a very great Talmid Chacham and very important posek, and publishes all kinds of wonderful works. He gave directions, and he was more or less lenient also, more or less. You can see also, by the way, just these Sorba packets, they're really wonderful sources of, variety of poskim, of kinds of poskim. Okay. Then it says like this. Some poskim, such as Rav Hershel Schachter and Rav Yitzchak Yosef, that's the current Sephardi chief rabbi, son of Rav Ovadia Yosef, have been opposed to such minyanim on strictly halachic grounds. Rav Schachter also adds that even an outdoor minyan should be discouraged due to the danger involved. All of these things, depend. You have to know when, like literally what day these were written and published. These shuvos. So we'll read just some English from Rav Schachter's psakim. Rav Schachter also said fascinating psakim. We shared some of them. You can find all of them in many places. YU Torah, Torah Web. But he says like this. He knows the lenient opinions. Now again, let's remember the Mishmar himself said, in a difficult situation, perhaps one can be lenient. Rav Schachter said, but this leniency to see each other is very difficult, since it all stems from the halacha and the Mishnah and Brachos concerning Zimun. The Rashba himself is uncertain if you can really apply it to a minyan. And the implication of all Talmudic sources is that for Dvarim Sheva Kedusha, when you require a minyan, they need to be in one room. That is the simple reading of Psachim, right? You can't be out of the door. The Gemara doesn't say, it's right, because let's remember the Gemara. The Gemara says, as soon as you're out of the door, you can't count, right? So the lenient opinions are going to say, well, that's if they can't see you. But if you're a centimeter out of the door, how can they not see you, right? You have to say, well, they're like around the corner in the room. It's a difficult read in the Gemara. The simple reading of the Gemara is you need to be in the same room. So Rav Schachter didn't like relying on lenient opinion, and he just then also says, and also we shouldn't be running to try to find ways to make the minyan. It's dangerous, and just don't make a minyan. That's sort of this last paragraph, right? Since one should not place himself into a situation of even doubtful sakana in order to daven with the minyan. We won't read Rav Yitzchak Yosef. He also doesn't like the lenient opinion, and then it quotes other tshuvos. So there were different prominent poskim who felt differently about this. The majority probably felt you could be lenient. The majority of current everyday of today's poskim probably felt you could be lenient. I was looking into this, and before I go further, any questions or comments?
I'm just curious, since there's the number of cases in the U.S. is substantially higher than that of Israel, did that make the psak of happening outside more, acceptable?
Based on what we're discussing, it shouldn't, but you wonder. Again, the only one who explicitly brings it up, as far as I know, of the psak we just read was Rav Schachter. Rav Schachter says, right. I don't think halachically this really one should rely on this opinion. And two, we're not trying to find ways to make minyanim anyways because of the danger. So don't do it. That he brought that up. Mm-hmm. But you wonder if that did affect maybe some of the thinking. So I was learning the sugya, and it gets back to that Shulchan Aruch. How do you read the Shulchan Aruch? Some psak in the Shulchan Aruch say you need to be in the same room. And then you have this window case. There were Gedolei Achronim of the 18th and 19th centuries, which do seem to hold. If you can see each other, it works. I can't deny that. But I have to check this more. But it seems to me, and I wasn't looking to make a chiddush here. We're just going to learn these fascinating topics with the Tzorba packets. It does seem to me there's a fundamental mistake here. And I'm not sure when it crept into the understanding of the Shulchan Aruch. But Rav Schachter is right, I really think. The simple reading of the Gemara is that you need to be in the same room or for sure the same building. So how could the Rashba, who everyone is claiming is the lenient opinion here, say it's enough if you see each other? The Rashba cannot misread a Gemara. I am telling you, the Rashba cannot misread a Gemara. There can be Achronim who are great, incredible Achronim that, I don't know, have weird readings of the Gemara. It's just not, it troubled me. So we're gonna look at it together. To me, the Rashba never said this. And if anything, it's clear he said the opposite. So I'll show you now. We'll see two more sources, which are not in the Tzorba packet. So first, what is the source of the Halach and the Shulchan Aruch of this window case? It is not the Rashba. That for sure is a fact. Okay, even though it's presented that way many times, it is for sure not the Rashba, and I will show you. Let me find it here in my computer here. Okay. Oh, this is 1 second. It's even better. Okay, everyone see this?
Yeah.
Everyone. I don't know if you know what I'm looking at, but oh gosh, 1 second. Sorry. Okay. I'm not sure what I just said there. Okay, we'll look at this one. This is the Torah. It's the end of Siman Nun Hey, which is what we're learning, and the Beis Yosef, which is the basis of the Shulchan Aruch, the same person of Yosef Cairo, his Psakim. And excuse me, let me find this. Okay, here we go. Let's start right here. Can everyone see my mouse here? Umashma. Everyone see that? Okay. So the Beis Yosef here is quoting an earlier source, who says as follows: Umashmali, it would seem to me, Dahai de chalonos, this that windows, va'ove aksalim, and the width of walls, kilifnim, is considered in the room, and therefore if you're like in the window, you can be counting towards the minyan. Kisharosho verubo bechalon. That's only if your head and the majority of your body is in the window. So if you're standing outside, you stick your head and the majority of your body in, and they're in the window's airspace, you can count. Oal ovea kosel, or if your head and the majority of your body is over the wall. Hanira mitocha bayis, that can be seen from within the building. The Beis Yosef says, that's what I would think the Beis Yosef says. Because if it's just a little bit of you, you're not in the space. Umatsasi shekasav Rabbeinu Hagadol Maharia Buhav. But I found that the Maria Buhav, he was the Gadol of Tzfat when Rav Yosef Cairo moved there. Most people have never heard of him. The Maria Buhav, I forget what his first name was. He was, if you know the whole smicha controversy, when they recreated smicha, the first person they gave smicha to, all of the rabbis of Tzfat, when Rav Yosef Cairo was already there, was the Maria Buhav. He was considered the greatest. Then he gave smicha to Rav Yosef Cairo, because once you have smicha, you can give smicha. But the original one who they gave smicha to was the Maria Buhav. So anyways, the Maria Buhav, though, wrote, B'shem Gon, in the name of some Gon, Demachnis Rosho Bechalon Mitztarifim Ahem Leminyan Asara. If you stick your head in the window, that counts. And he made no distinction of getting the majority of your body in. But you were Machnis Rosho, you stuck your head in. V'chein Chasav B'Orchos Chaim, and the Rav Yosef Cairo writes, and similarly, the Orchos Chaim is a Rishon writes, V'zel Lashon, a quote, Chasav Rabbeinu Hai. Rabbeinu Hai wrote as follows. Tell me if these words sound familiar. Mi sha'omer achori beis hakneses. Someone who is standing outside of the shul. U'beineim chalon, and there's a window. Afilu gavo kama kamos, even though it's very many stories tall. Afilu ein rachav arba, even if it's not 4 wide. Umar elahem panav, and you show your face to them. Misham, from there. What does the word misham mean? From the window. Mitztaref imam lasara, you can count towards the 10. Ad kan lashonu, end quote. So in other words, someone, maybe it's already clear. This is the source of the Shulchan Aruch. It seems clear that what he meant was if you stick your head into the window, right? You're not looking through the window to someone on the other side of the street, another property. The point is that since the window space, the thickness of the wall is considered in the room, considered kilifnim dummy. So as long as you stick your head in, and the chiddush is you don't need your whole or even the majority of your body, if you get your face in, that's enough.
It says a few gvoa kama komot.
Right?
How tall is?
So I don't know. Somehow you're up on the ledge, but I'll tell you, Ari, that's a proof for me, because if you think you're looking through the window to someone far away, what does it matter how high it is? But according to what I'm saying, which I think is the Pasha Pshat, the Chiddush is as follows. The Chiddush is that you're considered in the room.
Yes.
Right? So the Chiddush is, even though you're not on the same floor, the same level, you're still considered in the room. You're in the thickness of the wall, even if it's very high up, that's considered in the room, as long as your head is there. So
You think that the room of the shul was several stories high? That like our synagogue that
I think so. I don't know. How else do you understand it?
So, Rabbi, we have a window in the hallway looking into the social hall, which was built open for video or taking pictures.
Yeah, I know you're talking about. So if someone is
If
up
someone
there.
sticks their head into that window and they're davening in the social hall, that would be okay.
Correct. Now I'll be honest with you. I am troubled that the only one who says something similar to what I'm saying, I saw Rav Yitzchak Yosef's sort of says something like this. But you see, in the style of him and his father, they don't go back to the original sources. It's like roundabout through later Achronim, who are like same shot in the Shulchan Aruch. How do you understand the Shulchan Aruch? To say, oh, it must be stuck his head in. I don't know. So we have to somehow figure out. We have to make sure I'm not wrong, because it's I don't know. But so so first of all, that is the source of the window halach. Now, so and then you cannot have a porch minyan, right? Everyone understand? Because seeing someone far away is not good enough. It won't work. It's only if they're in the window airspace.
Well, to support you
Yeah.
is the comparison to Zimun, because the underlying assumption, I think, is that the people seeing each other to different groups are in the same room.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is part of the debate. That's
so if
probably
you
okay.
put
Let me
part
show
of
you
your
one
body,
other source. Yeah.
okay.
Oh, you understand, Howie? Yeah, continue, Howie.
No, so if part of your body, your head, sticks through the window, and I'm not sure why it would be an issue how high up it is. That's a logistics issue, but it's, if you get your head through the window, then what difference does it make how high up it is? I don't know.
Right.
I have no response to that. But it seems to me that your head has to be in the room somehow.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That based on. Okay. So now let me show you the Rashba. Okay. This is the famous Rashba that everyone is claiming that allows you to join people as long as they can see each other. Okay. Sha'alta, you asked me. Alma shesamchu b'chol gli loseinu. What is the basis in the practice in our lands? Sheshliach sibor omeid beteva. Shehi gavoa sara v'rachava arba. This is like the Sephardi shuls in Sfat. The way I remember it. In the middle of the room, there's like a high platform, right? And there's even like a fence around it. And the chazan would daven up there. But what's the problem? That's 10 tefachim tall, 4 by 4 tefachim wide. Ushiyesh lamachitzas gavos, and there's a fence, a wall, at least 10 tefachim tall around it. That's a different halachic area. Halachically, that's like a different room. So how can you have the chazan there? Umotzis arabim b'tfila, and he's bimotzi the people down below, which are halachically in a different area. Tshuva. So he gives two explanations. The first explanation is No, since that platform is it's not meant to be a separate area. Platform is meant to serve the shul. So we don't really view that as a separate area, even if technically it has certain halachic dimensions that otherwise we could consider it a separate area. It's the whole purpose of it is for people to, for the platform and the shul together. It's not considered a separate area. That's his first answer. And then he says, let me find it. Here. Ode ani Omer. Furthermore, I say, She'efsher lomar. This is what Schechter alluded to. Maybe, perhaps, another explanation is, so he's not even so definitive. Shekol sheroen elu es elu. As long as everyone can see each other, ki elu heim b'bayis echad. It is as if they're in one bias, dummy. Umitztarfen, and they can join. Now, if you just have that line quoted out of context, it sounds like what everyone quotes him as saying, but continue reading. Vidumya de zimun, it's like a zimun. Shel birchas hamazon for benching. Disnan, we learned in a Mishnah, shtei chaburos, two groups. Shahayu b'bayis echad, that was in one bias. Bizman shemiksasin and roan elu es elu, as long as they can see each other. Harei elu misarfin, they join lazimun. Now the question though is, what does the word bias mean? We think it means house. He says but in the Gemara, often bias means room. Okay. Now look what the Rashba says. Velo tema dafka bebias mamish. Don't think bias means literally bias, meaning room. It's a little confusing, but he means room here. And that you can only combine based on seeing each other if you're in the same room. And when you're combining it by benches, because you're in the same room, which wouldn't help him for his platform case, because that technically is two different areas. Don't say it means only a bias, meaning a room. Again, velo tema dafka bebias mamish. The bias echad, when the Mishnah Bracha says you can combine if you're in one bias, hainu bira achas. It means one building. If you're in one building and you can see each other, even though you're in different rooms, if you see each other, you can combine. Ukumosha amru. Aru labira bias. Sometimes we call a building a bias also. V'cheini bias labias amar b'psachim. Anyone who was in our Arvei Psachim here, when it says talking about going from bias to bias, in that there it's clear it means hainumi birabi means from building to building. So bias can mean building. So when the Mishnah Bracha says if you see each other, as long as you're in the same bias, it means as long as you're in the same building, you can combine. So to here by my platform, my Sephardi shul, as long as they're in the same bias, the same building, which they are, if they can see each other, they can combine. Even though it's technically a halachic different area because it's, again, a platform and there's a mechitza. But it's in the same bias, meaning building. So I don't know if this is, maybe this is too, a little bit convoluted. But if anything, it's clear in the Rashba, you have to be in the same building. He was only suggesting this, and this, again, this was even just a suggestion. He said, perhaps. He was only suggesting if you can see each other, that would be enough. If they're in the same building, right? But it's just a problem that you're considered different rooms. You're on a platform or you'd be in different rooms. But if you're in the same bias, i.e. bira, i.e. building, then seeing each other is enough. But he never said that you can seeing people outside in another building would work. If anything, the impression is that it would not work, right? Because it's only if it's in a bias echad. So, I don't know. So that's why I have to work on this a little bit more because I don't know. It just seems like it's a mistake. I'll be honest with you. This doesn't happen so often, and I'm a little hesitant to say this. But on the one hand, I can't deny there were major great poskim of the 18th and 19th centuries, which understood that that seeing people even in another, porch, another building would work. And based on that, many of the poskim of today were lenient in our situation. But I'm not sure, I'm not sure if that is the correct reading of the original sources. I'm really not sure. So, and that would be the reason why, again, there were certainly some poskim, the Torah says, Rav Shachter, Rav Yitzchak Yosef, who sort of for these reasons, they don't make it quite as clear, did not want to rely on the leniency. So this is, we'll have time now just for questions, but so this is some of the issues and why it was a debate. There were different opinions. Could you make these kinds of porch minyanim? Again, we didn't discuss if you're outside and there's a fence or there's a street, but in terms of being in different buildings or different porches, these are the issues that they're at play. Okay, I hope I didn't bore anyone with my own,
Hi, but no.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, any questions or comments?
Rabbi, I have a question. This is Rob.
Yes.
Is it possible to say that maybe a porch is not really like a room? It's maybe part of a larger reshut that's joined?
Right. It depends on, maybe, but probably not. It depends on, because assuming there's a railing that would, it's very similar to the Rashba's platform, or could be in the Sephardi Shul. It depends on the railing, but presumably it's going to be a railing that is considered a Halachik Mechitza, which is considered a different area. I will tell you, Rav Sternbach has a Chiddush, and he's probably right, Lashitaso. He thinks, again, as long as you can see each other, it's okay. But if it's a street, that could be more problematic. So if there'd be a street between the apartment buildings, then that could be more problematic. But he says, if you are on a higher floor, so really even the top floor, the second floor, if you're 10 tefachim above the ground, then you're not considered on the ground, and then the street wouldn't divide between you and the opposite second floor, because you're sort of you're in the air, you're not on the ground. It's similar, sort of maybe to what you're suggesting, but I don't know if it's exactly the same.
Rabbi,
Presumably, it's a mechitza, different rishus.
would it matter if all the balconies were in the same building?
I don't think so. You're saying because maybe then you could invoke the Rashba. You're saying maybe because the Rashba says if you can see each other as long as you're in the same building at least.
Rabbi.
I'm
That
not
would
sure.
kind of depend on what he meant by the same building. Maybe the same building would require, the same roof, kind of.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but if it's the same roof.
Correct. Yeah, because if you're on different floors, right, you could see how that could be right, that he wouldn't extend it to different floors. I hear. I'm not sure, honestly.
Or if your porch sticks out and isn't under a roof.
Right. That's also true.
What about
That's
a
also
bunch
true.
of houses, the porches face the street, but the street doesn't go anywhere, but it's a cul-de-sac?
It will be the same machlokas if everyone is on the porch of the front porch of their house. So if you hold that's they're in different domains, that's for sure. According to the poskim, that seeing each other is enough, the classical poskim and the poskim of today, then it would be good. If you hold that seeing each other does not work, if you're in different domains, then it won't work.
What about the Shulchan Aruch in what is it? Ted Vav, where it says that if some people are inside and some people are outside, and the Chazan is in the doorway,
Correct.
then they can join.
Right. So that does combine it. But so what do you want? So again, Ari saying the Shulchan Aruch says if let's say you have 5 in, 5, whatever, 5 or 4 in, 5 and 4 out. Yeah. And the Chazan is in the doorway, so he's kind of in both areas, so he can connect the two. So that definitely is true. So what, Ari? What do you want to take?
So I'm just wondering why you want to how that is that necessarily consistent with the Rashba? or with the way you're understanding the Rashba?
Why not?
Well, they're in. Some people are in. They're not all in the same house.
Correct, but you're right. You're right. But since to some degree the chazan is the most important person, and he's kind of like on the border, so he's kind of in both places. So that's an exception that he can sort of link the people in different places. But if you don't have that critical link, then they're in different places. You can't combine them. I'm not sure. Was that yes, sorry. Yes, couldn't. Yeah.
I was just curious. The name Beit Knesset. I don't know. I guess going back historically how far it goes, but you can definitely.
In the Gemara, the Gemara uses the term Beit Knesset. Maybe the Mishnah. I don't remember.
Right. Okay. So how does that play versus Beit Bira, and with the Rashba? I guess.
Why? What's the problem, Phil?
No, I'm just wondering that.
Knesset is a place of gathering. That's what Beit Knesset means, place of gathering.
But is it inside one spot, or is it more? I mean, the Rashba is defining it a lot more. It's not a gathering of just people. It's also within a building, and whereas I'm just trying to find a delineation between the two, Beit Bira and Beit Knesset, and where we're getting to the point where we have a building versus we say as long that Mira Panav that we can have a minyan.
Not sure. We'll look at the Rashi a little more. It's late, so if it does next week will be about Zoom. Okay, I'm sure everyone will want to come for that. So and if you want to look ahead, that's the next section in this packet, and you can look ahead and learn it, and it won't make the shear unnecessary. So you'll only get more. If anything, it'll be review, and you'll get more out of it. So, but no need to, and God willing, we'll do that next week, same time. Okay. All right. If I don't see you over Shabbos, have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining.
Following comment is about
Thank you.
Zoom from the shul.
Thanks, Howie. What, Howard?
When you Zoom from the shul, for those of us online, discussions that the people say, we don't hear it.
Okay, I'll try to repeat it when Okay. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you. I gotta go. Good night.